politician is grounded for the next 60 days. Amongst the above, President Uhuru Kenyatta gave 14 new adjustments with an order of maximum adherence coupled with penalties for flouters. President Uhuru Kenyatta called upon Kenyans to exercise a civic responsibility to allow us deal with the pandemic in totality. The U.S. presidential race now shaping up after a long moment of uncertainty on who is likely to carry the day between President Donald Trump and Vice President Joe Biden. We discuss the developments of the above as we continue, of course, this morning, and Morning Cafe begins right now. I am Linda Alela. The hashtag, as always, is Morning Cafe, and on Twitter at Linda_Alela TV47KE. Let's kickstart the broadcast by first of all taking a look at what is happening in the world of news. And of course, as of yesterday's address by President Uhuru Kenyatta, so much culminating. All learners who reported to school in October will continue with their classes, whereas the rest of the other learners will resume their physical classes in January 2021. President Uhuru Kenyatta announced this during his address to the nation. Sharon Baranga now reports.
Grade 4, Class 8 and Form 4 candidates will continue with their lessons as it had been planned by the new school calendar released by the Ministry of Education last month. This is according to President Uhuru Kenyatta.
With respect to the examination classes that have already resumed learning, I hereby order that they continue with their learning and examination preparations, but under heightened health safety measures, and with that, also order that all basic education classes resuming in-person learning in January of 2021.
The students currently in learning institutions reported on 12th October for the first time since schools were closed indefinitely in March after the first case of COVID-19 infection was reported in the country. Recently, there was a concern in relation to students who are in school after some schools reported cases of COVID-19 infections. Some teachers also succumbed to the virus. But Education CS George Magoha has been assuring parents that the infection cases from some schools was under control.
The case of Maranda, where somebody came from the coast and infected another 8 or so candidates. But it is under control. And Maranda, being one of the largest schools, has a candidature of over 650 this year. So from the point of view of numbers, those students are being isolated and the school is ongoing. So the other big issue is that if you now ask them to go home, then another incident like that might happen.
With the few learners in schools, the institutions are now able to achieve social distancing in line with the guidelines from the Ministry of Health. The current Class 8 and Form 4 candidates will sit for their national examinations in March 2021. This means that in the same year, the country will have 2 streams of Form 1 students, those currently at home and the ones expected to graduate from primary school next year. And the situation also applies to Class 5 pupils. However, it is expected that by January 2021, the country will be flattening the curve of the COVID-19 infections. Sharon Baranga, TV47.
And Voi Primary School has been shut down after 3 teachers tested positive for COVID-19. A letter from the school head says that out of the 30 teachers that were tested, 3 turned positive. Our Education Affairs reporter Andrew Kilemi now reports.
Over 5 schools have so far been shut down in the 4th week after schools reopened for Grade 4, Class 8 and Form 4 students. The schools have been closed due to COVID-19 infections that have been reported among students and teachers. Voi Primary School joins the list of those schools after 3 teachers tested positive for the virus on Wednesday. A letter released by the school head Mvuria Mumia directed that all teachers leave the school for self-quarantine.
Jui nini kilitokea, lakini walimu jana waliweza kupimwa, lakini sisi tukaambiwa kwanza time za jioni kwa tunaweza ka for 3 days ndio turudi shuleni.
Meanwhile, Kenya Union of Post-Primary Teachers KUPPET now recommends that schools set up different isolation centers for affected students instead of putting them in separate rooms, saying this would cause stigmatization among learners.
Wanafunzi, they are stigmatized. Walimu pia they are traumatized. Sasa tunapendekeza ya kwamba wale wanafunzi ambao wameathirika kule Kolanya wapelekwe in a different isolation center kama vile Alupe. Kusema ya kwamba wanabakishwa kwa shule kwa bweni tofauti, hiyo ni kumiss the point.
The union also wants State Department of Education to provide risk allowance to teachers.
We are not employees of a lesser employer. Minet Health Insurer to immediately assume the responsibility of meeting treatment costs for the teachers who've been infected by the COVID pandemic.
KUPPET has further urged teachers' employer TSC to exempt from duty expectant tutors and those with underlying health conditions. Andrin Kilemi, TV 47.
Jubilee's Vice Chairman David Murathe has dismissed claims that President Uhuru Kenyatta is keen on reviving the case against Deputy President William Ruto at the International Criminal Court (ICC). This is after a Kenyan lawyer surrendered at the Hague-based court after he was accused of interfering with witnesses during the case that was facing DP Ruto and radio journalist Joshua Sang.
Speaking in Nyeri County, Jubilee Vice Chairman David Murathe has denied claims that Uhuru administration is keen on reviving Hague case against Deputy President William Ruto in bid to curtail his presidential ambition. Murathe says that surrender of Nairobi-based lawyer Paul Gisheru should not be interpreted to mean that someone wants to fix Ruto so that his case is revived.
The president, I spoke to him this morning, and he would not like anything of the sort to be visited even on his worst enemy, let alone his deputy president. A person they campaigned together, they won together. They were in the ICC together. He knows what they went through. He would not wish that case to be revived or to be visited upon any person, let alone the deputy president.
Lawyer Paul Gisheru was wanted by Hague-based International Court, surrendered to Netherlands authorities this week, heightening tension among political leaders that Ruto case in the court could be revived. The ICC, in a communication released on Monday, said Gisheru is suspected of offenses against the administration of justice, consisting in corruptly influencing witnesses of the court.
He was alleged to have coached witnesses. He was alleged to have been engaged in witness tampering. He is probably just going to clear the air with the ICC.
The arrest warrants against the two were issued in March but kept sealed or secret from the public to ensure they did not attempt to flee or obstruct the investigations or court proceedings.
And Deputy President William Ruto's allies under the Inua Mama initiative now want the Building Bridges initiative report reopened for further consultations. This as the BBI report continued to elicit mixed reactions across the political divide. Joash Ansari with the details.
No BBI. No Just for Women. No BBI.
The women leaders allied to Deputy President William Ruto have yet again raised their opposition to the Building Bridges initiative, terming it to have left out women in leadership positions.
Mwanamke vyake imekuwa ni kama mbele vimewekwa lakini vinangoja kuamuliwa, lakini vingine vishamuliwa tayari. Kwa hivyo mama, kusema ukweli, kwenye hii BBI tumemwangalia mama peke yake. kwamba hana kitu cha kuhesabu katika hii BBI. Na mimi naungana na wenzangu kusema hii BBI haitatufaa.
The leaders calling on the BBI steering committee to reopen the documents for further consultations.
Our condition is simply one: reopen this document for conversation, for debate, for amendment. Otherwise, we will be forced to have no other option but to reject this bill.
We are not willing to board. We shall not board on this BBI.
Meanwhile, Interior PS Karanja Kibicho has urged Githunguri residents to read and understand the BBI report before making a decision.
Kienda kusoma hii kitabu, tusije tukakuwa tunapigiwa tu emotions, ndio sisi wenyewe tukose kuona ile kitu ya maana kwa wananchi wetu. Na ndio nimesema tukikuja hapa, najua online copies ziko zimeachiliwa, nikasema nitaacha hapa copies 100 zigawanywe tu opinion leaders, na tunajua hivi karibuni hizi vitabu tutavijaza, especially tukimaliza kuokota signatures.
Kibicho was speaking after Kiambu County Women Representative Gathoni Wamushomba, who was booed by a section of the locals while trying to convince them to read and understand the BBI report.
Na pesa yetu itapitia katika hiyo document inaitwa BBI. Asanteni sana na Mungu awabariki.
Elsewhere, the County Assembly's Forum has welcomed the Building Bridges initiative that was recently launched.
We are happy that the two principles in the BBI process are contacting and consulting with the stakeholders.
The forum, however, want the bill amended to factor in the Senate, address the plight of farmers, as well as increase the allocation of revenue to the wards from the county governments.
The concept is itself, as assemblies of this country, we are proud that for the first time since devolution, the Ward Development Fund, the ward as the primary unit of development, has been recognized. What is there now that requires consultations is what percentage of all the revenues coming to the county should go to the ward. And for that, the chair and his team will come out with it.
The CAF committee will give its final report next week if they will support or reject the report. The BBI report continues to raise mixed reactions across the political divide, with DP Ruto allies now at the crossroads to either support or reject the report after it emerged that the proponents of the report are pushing for no amendments in the document. Joash Onsare, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, matatu operators in Nakuru are calling on residents within the Rift Valley region to support the Building Bridges initiative, saying it will bring an end to divisive politics and the cycle of election-related violence. The matatu operators held a demonstration at the town central business district, citing issues of violence and economic instability that affect the country every election year. Central Rift Matatu Association Chairman Stephen Muli called on residents to read and understand the report, saying the document was fostering ways to unite all Kenyans.
Pamoja na watu yote ya matatu. Friday wiki ijayo ni siku ya bahati. Kama watawatoa kwenye watawatoa, hata kama wataweka stecha ngapi, sisi hatutakosa njia ya kuleta matatu hapa.
Rend almost every farmland along the banks of River Daua in Mandera town has been inundated by floods that originated from Ethiopia. River Daua broke its banks and destroyed food crops, leaving farmers with huge losses. Our reporter Isadine Haji is keeping tabs on that developing story and now reports.
Since the onset of the past weekend, farmers along the banks of River Daua in Mandera were experiencing floods. The flood water, believed to be originating from Ethiopia, swept their farms overnight, causing massive damage.
Mvua hii kunyesha huku lakini kwa sababu ya flooding ambapo ilinyesha mahali pengine, mashamba ya wakazi wa Mandera kumbwa na hiyo tatizo.
Isaac Ahmed is counting losses. He can't believe what he counted on and thought to be his future income turning into a pool. His crops are submerged and his future uncertain.
Kila aina ya mboga ambaye tunapanda, ambaye watu wa Mandera wanatumia, leo Mandera haina mboga ama haina hata nyanya hata moja. Ni sababu ya hii mwafriko ya maji imetusababisha.
Farm engines like generators used to pipe water from the river to the farms were swept away. Acres of land, some awaiting harvest, were destroyed and the farmers' livelihoods crippled.
Mumea yote ambayo tumepanda, ambayo tulikuwa tumeanza kuvuna nyanya, kitunguu, mahindi, yote imeoza. Kila kitu, ile mtu natoa fee school, ile mtu natoa watoto iko university, kila kitu, ile kitu wewe nakula yote iko hapo ndani.
Hii shamba yangu imeharibika karibu maliana 3 mwezi wa 5 uliopita. Sasa hata pia namna hii kitunguu imeiva karibu ya kunyolewa, sasa imeingia maji.
Farmers are now calling on the national and county government to respond to the disaster that has befallen them. Hundreds of people were left homeless months ago in similar incident, with fears that the situation might worsen in future.
Kwa tunaongea na wakulima na pia tumechukua idadi ambayo imeharibika na tunashughulikia.
According to Kenya Meteorological Department, northeastern counties are expected to experience occasional rainfall during the season. The expected rainfall amounts are likely to be below the long-time average amounts of the season. Ample rainfall is yet to be experienced in this part of the region, but floods from the neighboring Ethiopia won't stop trickling through these banks. Esedin Haji, TV47, Mandera County.
Well, Democratic nominee for the United States presidential election, Joe Biden, has extended his lead in the race for the White House, garnering 264 electoral college votes. At a time, his challenger, incumbent Republican Donald Trump, trails closely with 214 votes and with the 270 votes threshold within sight for either candidate, tallying his ongoing in final states that are expected to prove vital in determining the fate of the presidential race. David Muthoka with that report.
Calling on Democrats to be patient with the vote count.
Your patience is commendable. We knew this was going to go long, but who knew we're going to go into maybe tomorrow morning, maybe even longer. But look, we feel good about where we are. We really do. I'm here to tell you tonight, we believe we're on track to win this election.
On the other hand, Trump has threatened to mount a legal challenge to the poll's results, alleging that the vote count has been marred by electoral fraud.
This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. So our goal now is to ensure the integrity for the good of this nation. This is a very big moment. This is a major fraud in our nation. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop.
However, it could take days before the official poll results are released, with this election set to go down as one of the most bitterly contested races for the White House in America's history. David Muthoka, TV47.
Well, we'll be pondering some more on that particular story later on the broadcast. We'll be having someone from Pennsylvania, of course, one of the states that is set to decide or determine who's going to be the president of the United States later on. But first, let's take a short break and we'll be coming back with the newspapers.
Je, maumivu ya kichwa na kukosesha amani? Kaluma Strong hutuliza maumivu ya kichwa, maumivu ya mwili na hata huondoa joto jingi mwilini. Kaluma Strong ina aspirin kama kiungo. Maumivu yakizidi, muone daktari.
Je, una tatizo lolote la ngozi ambalo limekuwa likikusumbua na kukuletea aibu mbele ya umma? Usisumbuke tena, maanake mtaalamu anayeongoza katika tiba asilia, Daktari Peter Masharia Murugu, ana suluhu yako kupitia mafuta ya kujipaka ya Oh My. Mafuta ya Oh My yanasaidia kumaliza chunusi, alama baada ya chunusi kupona, kumaliza stretch marks, upele, kutunza ngozi kutokana na athari za jua na baridi kali, kati ya matatizo mengine ya ngozi. Mafuta ya Oh My yanatunza ngozi yako na kuipatia ulaini wa aina yake, na yanaweza tumiwa na watu wote, watu wazima na watoto pia. Ili kupata mafuta ya Oh My kwa bei nafuu zaidi, aidha kwa matumizi yako binafsi au biashara, wasiliana nasi kupitia 0722997788 au 0705161616. Oh My, lainisha ngozi yako.
You guys, Maze, keep it the big flag. You know how we do every Monday to Friday.
How deep is your love for me?
Thursdays, we talk about property, land buying, home ownership, construction material, interior design, furniture, and fittings. A field day for you in everything properties to grow your brand. Come enjoy incredible value through intensity, frequency, and most of all, pocket-friendly prices. Thursday Property Experience only on TV47. For more information, call us on 0712 047 047 and let us help you grow.
And for the newspaper review, we have Bidian Okoth, who's a youth inclusion advocate, and George Kamando, philanthropist and politician. They'll be joining me on Skype or via Skype so we can take a look at what is captured in the newspapers. Gentlemen, good morning. George, good morning.
Good morning to you.
I'm not able to hear you.
No.
Do we have Bidian? All right.
Yes, yes, I'm here.
Good to have you, gentlemen. So we have the People Daily, the Daily Nation, and the Standard newspaper. Let's go straight to it. America on the knife edge, a tight race. Voters turn out in large numbers as Trump and Biden keep the world on tenterhooks, with a handful of swing states poised to determine the next president of the United States, a story that we'll be looking at later on, and is captured on page 8 and 9, and technically captured on all the front pages of these other newspapers. We have the Standard newspaper that speaks of the same. We also have the Daily Nation, America on the edge. So, gentlemen, we've been following up on this, and indeed has been quite a tight and a close race. And here we are. There are likelihoods that Biden is going to carry the day, well, looking at the numbers. But then again, it is too close to call, as many would have argued, standing at 264, 6 shy to 270, which is the expected number. What do you make of what has been happening in the United States, the address of the two contenders, and what this means so far for the world?
First of all, I think what Trump is doing at the moment is not the best thing, because he's calling out for civil disobedience, and as we see, people are taking to the streets. I saw businesses covering up with wooden boards, just in case something might happen, because he went ahead and said that he's being rigged. I saw a meme this morning saying that America is a third world country with a Gucci belt. They're doing exactly what we've seen, especially in Kenya. Someone comes up and says that, okay, I think I'm the one who's going to win. I think people are stealing the elections, even before the outcome, when it was very, very early. It wasn't even at the 11th hour. So what is happening is he's just causing unrest, and you can see the Republicans are a bit with the gun laws. They're all over brandishing their guns, and people threaten for their lives because he's synonymous, and people say his name comes with fear, comes with terror. The last time he was on the other side, they said that he stole the election with the help of Russia. And this, before the election started, because the biggest winner right now, if Trump wins, is China. If Trump loses, is China. So I'm sure maybe in the morning or tomorrow when whoever wins, there'll be another spin-off to this.
All right, we follow up on it closely, and we'll update you later on. We'll be having Ed Grodd from Pennsylvania. Of course, he'll be taking us through what he thinks. Yes, and I'm coming to you. There's no way I'll go to the next story without allowing you to say something, Vivian.
Some of us are favorite supporters of Joe Biden. I think Trump missed a big point into these conversations. There is a conversation about mail-in ballots. And Trump did not encourage Republican supporters to vote through the mail-in ballots. And surprisingly, for the first time, we have over 70% of people voting through mail-in ballots, like 100 million votes were mail-in ballots or early voting. So Trump was expected to win because Republicans, who are the people who vote at the polling station, at least Republican supporters, are likely to show up, majority of them to show up and vote in the polling stations. And those are the ballots that are counted first. So by that count, Trump will be winning in multiple states. But then when the mail-in ballots, which are like 70% of the votes, are being counted, now there is this change from red to blue, like a mirage. It's just everything that was initially red is now changing to blue. And I imagine it's not a very good situation to be in if you are the incumbent president, to just see your colors changing from red to blue. Quite an interesting thing to see in the US.
All right, well, let's wait and see what happens in regards to the same. Yes, the world is watching and following closely. Away from that, coming back to the country, COVID schools to remain closed as Uhuru keeps the economy open. That's a story captured on page 6 and 7. And we stand at 58,587 confirmed cases of COVID-19 after, as of yesterday, 1,494 people tested positive in the last 24 hours, yes, as of that yesterday, and from 8,839 samples that were collected. Gentlemen, COVID is here. COVID is serious. I do not know what reservations you hold this time around, Kamano, in regards to this, because you are amongst the people who've argued that maybe there was no point of us actually proceeding to close the economy after all.
Yes. Maybe I think I've been proven wrong. I see right now there's a 341% increase in COVID cases, which is very high. But it's not just in Kenya; it's everywhere. Because I'm seeing the restrictions are being flaunted and things are easing up. So it's human is to follow. We always feel like, okay, I think let's just continue with life. But I like the stance that Uhuru had as regards to the politics, as regards to economy, because right now Kenya is at a recession. Our growth trajectory was about 5%, and if you look at it, about I think 1.5 months ago it was at negative 0.5, and right now if you look at it, we had negative 5%, and that is very bad. And that's after we have borrowed. And there was no way of our country doing it. We had to borrow so that at least we can't be in the red, just to cancel out the deficit that we have. But we are seeing like this, as I said before, I don't think that was supposed to be a long-term measure, because for me, the best thing was for the economy to be open, so that now we have the macro economy like growing naturally. People starting to trade, Mama Mboga selling to the local people, the farmer selling his produce. That's a natural way of growth. But keeping the economy open is really good at this point. People might say he's not doing the best thing, because it was very right for him to say that no more political gatherings, but open bars, because the bars have they help our economy. The government makes more money from bars because of sin tax, selling the alcohol, cigarettes and everything. So I'd rather, I'm for him, I give him a round of applause. Let's stop the politicking and now keep the economy strong and keep it open.
All right. Well, that is highly determined by how we're going to behave. President Uhuru Kenyatta urging us to ensure that we exercise civic responsibility. Just how much then are we supposed to do this to ensure that, yes, indeed, we do not push him to a point whereby, again, he'll have to revise this and revise it on the negative, or on, a direction that will have a negative impact on how we are dealing with the economy as of now, because, well, indeed, we've agreed that it's been quite a tight one to strike a balance between whether saving lives or saving the economy. Bidian, are you there? Yeah.
Yes. I do agree with Kamano in a lot of things, because I don't agree with him about the school a bit. Well, I think it's a good point. The president called us to action, and for me, I think the biggest message yesterday was no mask, no service.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to see how that works, but I think it's a good policy that it puts, there's a social accountability into it, that we have to put each other in accountable rather than looking towards the government to sort some of these challenges. However, about schools, I would have wished Uhuru would have at least facilitated a first opening of schools, because the idea is there is no sight, we don't really know when the vaccine will be here, so it's always better to close schools when you know when you are open. As in now, the spreading of COVID now is worse outside schools than it is inside schools, with the rallies and all these things that are happening. What failed us in education was unfulfilled promises. Like this 1 million, I don't know if you guys are aware of which school has already bought the 1 million desks that's supposed to be ready in the country. I'm still not aware of which school has already gotten them. And the promise of being given funds for face masks and sanitizer, a lot of unfulfilled promises that are supposed to keep the children safe. So I would have expected the president to at least step up and give a commitment for maybe within 3 days, the desk will be in school, or maybe within this particular number of days, the sanitizers and this amount of money will be in school. But yeah, the approach he also took, well, it's really good with damage control. Yeah, not opening additional classes for other people to go, but those who are in school, I think, should stay.
All right. Well, we ponder on the same later on as we proceed. Yes, it's the same story that has been. You want to say something?
I think President Uhuru addressed that matter about the masks and other things, because he said MPs should step in with the CDF and the so he addressed that issue because there is money already. Instead of him looking for monies and going to allocate it, let's just use whatever funds are there already. So bad times call for such measures. I don't know what else someone else would have expected.
Okay, well, story captured on page 10, 12 and 13 of the Standard newspaper. New school opening date out as Uhuru tightens COVID-19 rules, and rising infections are, of course, right here in the country. The same story also captured on the Daily Nation, the front page. Governors to lead on COVID-19 fight. New security powers. Schools reprieve for parents as learners to stay home until January. On curfew, Kenyans to mark New Year celebrations indoors as curfew extended to January the 3rd, and a curfew to be enforced between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. We will be pondering some more on this particular story as we proceed. But briefly take a story that is captured on the Standard newspaper front page and expounded on page 5 of the same. Wife of lawyer in ICC case speaks on surrender. This, I am sure you have seen, Bidian, and well, it's something that is more of a developing story. We're always here to update you on the same. Different quarters of the political divide also weighing their sentiments. Allies of the Deputy President William Ruto arguing that this is a bait, or this is something that is politically instigated and pushed probably by the state or members of Kieleweke, or so to speak. But on the other end, Murathe says that no, such is not the case. The president did not push for this, and they would not proceed to do such a thing. Bidian.
Yes, Kenya, for some reasons, ICC is a reason for us to vote for someone. It's always been a bit controversial for me. But remember, the president and the deputy president were hugely supported on their first term because of their case at the ICC, with the prayers across the country and everyone standing in unison with them. The deputy president had hinted in one of his public gatherings that his ICC case will be reopened. I think most of us didn't really take it as seriously as we should have. And now this is happening. So I don't know. I don't really know what to read into it. But there's a lot of things that can happen both ways for the deputy president. Either by this being opened, he will have the sympathy votes that he seeks. If the ICC discussion is brought back to the public domain and discussions, and Kenyans are very protectionist with their votes, or it's not really, it has nothing to do with politics. So really tough to tell these things. But according to politics, there's never really a coincidence. So there's somebody that is pushing this. It's been in the headlines for almost 2 days now. And well, this seems to be an important national conversations that will be happening in the next few days. Now that there's no public rallies, I think a lot of Kenyans are going to be following on this ICC case very closely.
Well, that very story is also captured on page 2 of the People Daily. Kamano, what do you make of this, and what direction will it likely to take the case, or the case story that was anyway supposed to be revisited in the event that other developments would occur?
In English jargon, they say it's not over until the fat lady sings.
Yeah.
I think what Bitman said about, nothing is coincidence. It's never a coincidence. Ruto decided to fight bare knuckle, and I'm telling you, he's getting what he wanted. I might be wrong, but then again, we've seen this going on. We've seen him hinting towards this, saying that because he knew that his case wasn't tightly sealed, so he was expecting something like this to happen. All I can say is let him now fight it in court already. And I'd like also to correct you, Peter. He's already getting sympathy votes. He's already the underdog, and those are the cards he's playing with the BBI. Because just a few months ago, he supported the BBI, and everyone in his camp supported the BBI. And moving towards the end, now he says, you need to change this particular thing so that I can agree with you, or I can be back on the bandwagon. And the government saw this. He's seeing like he's fighting a losing battle. The government has state machinery. Those are things that he doesn't have. And that's a fight that he might not be able to win. And he knows that if he loses, it's not going to be good for him, because he lost in 2010 because he was in the losing side, and him again this time, voter confidence will be very, 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 very low.
Right.
And Kamano, some of these things are a catch-22 for the deputy president. For instance, let's say the deputy president is not going bare knuckles, then he becomes like any other presidential candidates, the Didas, the Mudavadis that are always on the ballot with no real shot. And if he decides to go head on, then also he can't really face the state machinery.
Don't make a right. It doesn't mean that he should disagree for the sake of disagreeing.
Yeah, that's actually a good
All right, well, we dropped that one. We will be looking at the developments later on. On matters BBI, women leaders say report waters down gains they have made
Since last
and achieved,
month.
especially on pushing for the two-third gender rule and a couple of other clauses that they cite. These are women leaders allied to Deputy President William Ruto Tangatanga's wing, and they call themselves Inua Mama Movement. And speaking of BBI, still Assembly's Forum threatened to shoot down the BBI report. And on the other end, members of county assemblies are asking to have a meeting with President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga in regards to seeing whether indeed they're supposed to proceed and front the BBI, and also echo some of the few sentiments that they would be having before they decide to publicize the same. Kamano.
BBI has more benefits than it does, than anything else right now. I think it's the best road to take. We've sat down. You can't the Tangatanga side can't say that we didn't that people didn't actually sit down and they were not included in these talks. These talks have been ongoing. They've been included. Just a few months ago, they were for it. And right now, just because of politics, they're against it. And now they're trying to dissect it, saying this is bad, this is bad. We saw Maraga saying that they need the gender rule should be applied. Okay, right now, I'm not for it, but if when you're passing something, you have to have some few losses as you have some wins. Because right now women are not going to be taken in because of merit. I believe like it should be a fair ground for women, and how come they didn't give the same amount to the youth? How come they're very concentrated on the women, not people living with disabilities and the likes.
All right. Well, what do you make of that, BDN, before I drop it?
Yeah, sometimes I think people will assume that I just like being against Kamano for fun. But regarding the BBI, I think it has watered down the position of women in the society. I think women are being taken from national government to the Senate, which sounds good on paper, but the Senate cannot discuss budget allocation conversations within so women are being taken from a place where they discuss things like the national budget, and these are the places that they can't really have conversations on anything that is the money bill. Additionally, they are going to lose the national government affirmative action fund, because that is only provided under the national government at the National Assembly for them as women reps. They're likely to lose it. I don't know if there will be some administrative changes to ensure that they can have this, but they are going to lose it. And it's exactly the same women that were in the National Assembly that are being taken to the Senate. But maybe not really the person, but an equal number of people that are being taken. And this brings up very bigger conversations about proportionality, about this two-third gender rule, because it's really been it has taken a more political dimension than a societal and community development dimension, because it seems to be sorting the political class, meaning that, okay, now more people within the political class will have an opportunity to join governance. I think there's a bit of pushback, but I also agree with Kamano in terms that there's a lot of benefits that is in it. And I think some of these people that are opposing it have just decided to focus on the things that are not working. But there are a lot of things working. The funds that are being taken to counties could come with different clauses and requirements. Like now the president has said each county to have 30% of the funds that are going to them put under health. And you see, these are some of the things that help the women in the society. And the president will go to the step up maternal healthcare, reproductive healthcare within the county. All those are supportive for women. Or maybe within this particular number of. I think it's a good or a bad thing in school. But the BBI issue, the approach, they have had discussions for 2 years. Right. And I think it's really unfair for somebody to support other people to go. They still need to have discussions. But those who are in school, all right. The Tangatanga are missing the point.
Okay, well, we wait to see what happens. We'll be following up on the same closely also. Before we get to wind up, I think it would be unfair for us to exit before we take a look at this particular story about Nairobi and Sonko protest after MCAs reject high budget proposal. So the governor had asked Assembly to slash estimates from about 37.5 billion. However, 88 ward representatives rejected the memorandum. It's been a hula baloo of activities in Nairobi County. Not so easy between the general and the governor. And clearly, I mean, this is not going to end anytime soon. Kamanu.
Yeah, Sonko is a personal friend of mine, and I see him losing his grip on his MCAs. It's a sad thing, but those are the cards that he was dealt. I feel like he's the one who sat on the table, and he's the one who decided to trade in the county to the national government. If anyone is to have supposed to look inside, I think it's him. I think he's the one who's supposed to internalize these issues and just take this as a man. Yeah.
All right. Well, Bidian.
I think Sonko really missed to play the long game on this one. He met the president, he met the devolution minister, and signed up some of the deals to go to the national government. But he thought by doing that, he's really protecting himself from an impeachment. That he's now a bit safer with the protection of the national government.
Never coincidence.
But now he's in a situation that he can't really do much. The president, he has been seen in public telling Nairobi citizens to support the Gen Jamaa. So
I might be wrong.
It's going to be a problem, and it's not just now. Sonko has frustrated him with the budget last year. Attempted to eat widely. But Mbadi had borrowed some loans and only used the budget to pay off. And now this time, Mbadi has promised to launch some of the projects that he has been doing, and by the end of the year, I think Sonko will be in a very bad place politically. Because Mbadi is not launching them. It will be nice as a partnership, but the launch of all the projects in Nairobi, despite being the funds from Nairobi County government, are being done by the president himself. Meaning the county government is not taking any credit despite them having to discuss with the assembly, having to allocate funds for it. Sonko is part of the bigger conversations, but as they are launched by the president himself, they seem to be national government projects. Sonko is really losing political mileage.
Well, this, even as we hope that it's not going to be a question of individuals, but indeed an interest of what it is that Nairobi holds in terms of having a better future. So in that case, gentlemen, asante sana for the people who are watching us of now, Mudoka Wakani, Ika well represented, Geoffrey Chege, Derek Nambita, Daniel M. Kituri, and many more of you who are watching and responding to this. Asante sana. Keep it right here. It is time now that we take a short break. We'll be coming back with the discussion, and indeed, I want us to maintain the same tempo in reacting to the conversations of the day. Vivian Okoth, thank you so much for your time. And lastly, we also had George Kamanu. It was great having you, gentlemen. That's why we get to wind up the newspaper review session after this break on the conversation.
And I'm telling you, he's getting what he wanted. I might be wrong, but then again, we've seen this going on. We've seen him hinting towards this, saying that because he knew that his case wasn't type of steel, so he was expecting something like this to happen. All I can say is that he now fight it in court already. I like also for him to be the accused of.
Je, maumivu ya kichwa na kukosesha amani? Kaluma Strong hutuliza maumivu ya kichwa, maumivu ya mwili na hata huondoa joto jingi mwilini.
Let's say the deputy president is not going there now. Then he becomes like any other presidential candidate.
Je, una tatizo lolote la ngozi ambalo limekuwa likikusumbua na kukuletea aibu mbele ya umma? Usisumbuke tena, maanake mtaalamu anayeongoza katika tiba asilia, Daktari Peter Masharia Murugu, ana suluhu yako kupitia mafuta ya kujipaka ya Omai. Mafuta ya Omai yanasaidia kumaliza chunusi, alama baada ya chunusi kupona, kumaliza stretch marks, upele, kutunza ngozi kutokana na athari za jua na baridi kali, kati ya matatizo mengine ya ngozi. Mafuta ya Omai yanatunza ngozi yako na kuipatia ulaini wa aina yake, na yanaweza tumiwa na watu wote, watu wazima na watoto pia. Ili kupata mafuta ya Omai kwa bei nafuu zaidi, aidha kwa matumizi yako binafsi au biashara, wasiliana nasi kupitia 0722997788 au 0705161616. Lainisha ngozi yako.
Just a few months ago, they were for it, and right now, just because of politics, they're against it, and now they're trying to dissect it, saying this is bad, this is bad. We saw Maranda saying that the general should be applied. Okay, right now, I'm not for it, but if when you're passing something, you have to have some people are not going to be taken in because of merit. Treated on the women, not people who will decide.
I just like being against Kamano for fun. But regarding the BBI,
The big flag. You know how we do every Monday to Friday.
I just like being against Kamano for fun.
We talk about property,
but regarding the
land
BBI, I think
buying,
it has
home
watered down
ownership,
the
construction
women-
material,
position of
interior
women in
design,
society.
furniture,
Women are being taken
and
from national
fittings.
government to the Senate.
A field day for
Which
you in
sounds good on
everything
paper,
properties to
but
grow
the
your
Senate cannot
brand.
discuss budget
Come enjoy
allocation
incredible
conversation
value through
within the-
intensity,
So women are being
frequency,
taken
and
from a
most
place where they
of all,
discuss things with the national
pocket-friendly
budget.
prices.
These are the places
Thursday
they don't-
Property
they can't really have
Experience, only
conversations on
on
anything that is the money.
TV47. For more
Additionally, they are going
information,
to
call us on
use the national
0712
government affirmative
047
because that is only
047.
provided
Let
under
us help
the
you
national
grow.
government at the National Assembly for them as women reps. They're likely to lose it. I
My
don't
name
know
is
if
Bishop
there will
Mark
be some
Kariuki.
administrative changes to ensure that
Coronavirus
they can
is
have
not,
this,
is
and they are
not
going
a
to lose
myth.
it.
It is a
And it's
reality.
exactly the same
It is
women that
upon
were
every
in
one of us to
the National
protect
Assembly that are being
ourselves
taken to
and to
the
prevent
Senate.
the virus
Maybe
from
not really
spreading.
the person.
All you need to do is
An
to
equal
wash
number
your
of people that
hands
are being
often with soap.
And these things are very
Sanitize
bigger conversations
yourself.
about
Keep the social
proportionality about this
distance.
two-third gender rule. because
Avoid
it's really been
crowded
a
places.
more
For more
just taken a more
information,
political
you
dimension
call
than a societal
719 and you will
community
get the
development
information
dimension.
from the
Because it seems to be
experts.
sorting
If
the
you
political
call me,
class.
I will tell you
Meaning
the
that, okay,
Bible
now more
says,
people within
get
the
born
political
again.
class
That's what I will
will
tell
have an
you.
opportunity to
Commercial
join governance.
Corona.
I think there's a bit of pushback, but I also agree with Kamano on terms that there's a lot of benefits that is in it. And I think some of these people that are opposing it have just decided to focus on the things that are not working. But there are a lot of the funds that are being taken to counties.
Take an online class or do something with your life.
Like now the president has said each
all
county. There's a lot of benefits that is in it.
But the Garden of Eden is here to break this societal norm.
Foreplay is part of the simplest things to do.
Sexuality, why men move from woman to woman is when he has a weakness there and is untamed.
As for me, mi napenda wako na pesa wazee. I just don't care. Ala mikipiga 3 times a day ni 3 times a day kama tembe. Hakuna kungoja.
Make a date with us every Wednesday at 10 p.m.
It's been the Garden of Eden. I'm your host, Sonny Kanak. Until next time, keep the fire burning.
And I think some of these people that are opposing it have just decided to focus on.
Life is a journey.
I created by myself. This will count.
Matters of the heart. I was in love,
And through the journey, we face trials and triumphs.
To get beatings from every kind of, you literally walk on eggshells.
Kama sio nguvu na nduru wangekuwa wameniua.
On the things that are not working.
Bado anaweza kufanya 2 wives, no. Then the guy was hit twice.
We also find stories of courage and hope.
It is okay not to be okay. Identify what you are going through, label it, and then start working it from there.
And we let you take us through it all. Join Maria every Saturday at 8 p.m. on Confessions with Maria.
When the wheels of the global economy stop turning,
at the grind, the hustle gets even more real.
From interior designers to graffiti artists,
I wanted to be an architect.
I didn't start with anything. Ndio ilifika time mahali kakuja ikaanza
But there are a lot of
all the way
the funds that
to
are being
female
taken to
outstanding
counties.
entrepreneurs.
step ya kwanza.
Keep on investing in that business.
Lazima kuwe na wasee wenye una look up to.
Here, the entrepreneur is a doer and not a dreamer.
If you're getting into it, get it with thick skin.
Every Monday evening from 7:30 p.m., we talk business, we inspire, we learn, and we build.
to fraternity. Following on what is happening in the United States, indeed, quite a tight race between President Donald Trump and his main contender, that is the Vice President Joe Biden. So much so happening. Well, as the time we were starting sure, the race was at 214 as the two seek to attain the 270 that will be determining the winner of the day. So we briefly cross over to the United States, Pennsylvania, and we have Ed Grode who will be joining us to tell us what is happening, the developments of the same, and the reactions of the numerous Americans in regards to the electioneering process or the electioneering period. Ed, good evening.
Good evening.
It is morning our time.
Hey, time to start.
Good to have you, and thank you so much for finding time to speak to us.
Thank you.
Yes, what do you make of the process so far?
Well, we're down to about 4 states: North Carolina, my home state of Pennsylvania, Georgia, and way up north above Canada, Alaska. Down to 4 states. Right now, it's Biden 264 and Trump 214.
Mm-hmm.
So
well,
we're hoping, yes.
Pennsylvania is critical on this, and also the remaining states. What are your expectations so far? It looks like Joe Biden is headed towards clinching this.
Well, we're certainly hoping so. Pennsylvania is like 2 different states.
Mm-hmm.
The cities are very, very Democratic, and the county, the rural areas are very, very strong Republican.
Mm-hmm.
But the last votes to be counted will be for the cities, particularly the city of Philadelphia, the largest city.
Right.
And we're hoping the African-American votes will come through and put him over the top.
Mm. Well, we have seen the address of the two gentlemen, the incumbents, so to speak, arguing that maybe there's that need for a civil disobedience and also setting the stage for litigation. And let it be known that 11 days into it, he nominated a Supreme Court judge. In regards to this, what would it mean moving forward and looking at how the numbers are culminating?
Well, if Trump does file the challenges, we would hope that the new Supreme Court justice, since she was put in there specifically to save the presidency for him, would recuse herself.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, this has been looked at as, a negativity, or so to speak, especially when you match this with the rest of the world and the electioneering periods with, in comparison to the rest of the world. Such is not always with such a superpower. But Trump seems to be bringing a different face of what we've known America to be. What does it make you feel?
It makes me feel terrible. With Trump, everything has changed. Now we are no morally better than the Russians.
Good to have you, and thank you so much for finding time to speak to us.
And now it's all about America being first.
Yes, what do you make of the process so far?
The only good thing I can tell you is, the old white men like myself, the old Bazookas who brought all the hate and followed Trump, we're dying off, and that's not a bad thing. We expect so much better for the next generation. Right now, I worked at a polling station where I used to be headmaster years ago, and I saw some of my former students voting. Yes, and also
Pennsylvania
many new
is
Americans,
critical on this, and also the remaining states.
Somali
what are your
refugees
expectations so far?
coming
It
out
looks
and voting
like
for the
Joe
first time
Biden
with
is
great
headed towards
pride.
clinching this.
Muslim refugees, all these people make America great. True Americans, are people who come here from someplace else and love America and make it better.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, we were hoping that Trump would be kicked out of office, and we could get some kind of moral decency back.
Well, his love for America has been evident based on his mantra that, America only or America first, and such is what he's been pushing for. Whether he wins or not, what would be a take home in terms of, developments or in terms of changes that he's made for America?
So you're asking what would happen if Biden came in?
No, I'm saying, is there anything to take home in terms of a first term or the first term of President Donald Trump?
Yes. Donald Trump loves America and Americans who look like him. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
He only loves Caucasian Americans. We have lost refugees. We don't take refugees like we used to. We don't take immigrants like we used to. And these are people who come from other countries and make us a better place. So we've never been in this state in our history, I would say.
Well, not to project or not to project, to speak or to say predict doom in this particular case, but yes, there's been some bit of tension growing, all from this side, the Democrats and the Republicans. What are your expectations moving forward, and what should be done to ensure that sanity remains in the event that Trump loses or wins, or either way the election goes? Well, we have seen the address of the
if
two
he loses,
gentlemen.
we do not think the crazies, okay, the people that have the guns
that maybe there's that
will come out.
For
really,
civil disobedience,
we think
and also
law enforcement
setting the
will be able to
stage
stop
for
that.
litigation.
We
And let
think
it be
if
known
he
that
loses
11
and
days
Trump
into
goes on
it,
and complains, as he always does on television,
nominated
he will
a
simply
Supreme
look
Court
foolish,
judge
like
in
a
regards to
showman
this. What would it
whose
mean
TV show has been canceled.
moving forward, and looking at how the numbers are Right. culminating? Well, Ed Grod, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so I much guess as for
of
now
finding
we
time
cannot
to speak
speak much,
to
but
us.
we're crossing fingers that we'll have you another time
Yes,
as
what
we
do you make
ponder
of the
some more
process so
on the
far?
developments of the same. Thank you so much once again for your time. And yes, we keep tabs in regards to this closely. We'll certainly be here to update you on the same on our subsequent bulletins. But now we cross over to the discussions of the day, and we already have our guests in studio on standby. We'll also be having one of them joining us via Skype. Gloria Ruoba, thank you so much for finding time to be with us this morning. And Joseph Simeha, it's been a minute. He's a governance expert. I don't know where he disappeared to, but we're glad that we have him today, and importantly, have him in studio. And we'll also be having Joy Mdivo joining us via Skype. Joy Mdivo is the advocate of the High Court. Thank you so much for your time, and good to have you this morning. Politics taking center stage, or you want to say something about America? Briefly. No thanks?
We've been told we can focus on our issues here in Kenya.
Oh, yeah?
So once Biden or Trump wins or loses, whoever, we come back here, we deal with our constitutional amendments,
Right.
we deal with COVID-19 things, economic recovery. So I think I'm going to focus
much on. All right.
I think it's in spite of what appears to be a mess by politicians, I think there is something to learn from them.
Yeah.
In terms of the integrity of the public officials, just what the public officials are doing in terms of managing this election. And you'd remember that they do not have a national electoral commission. They have thousands of electoral management bodies in the US. And they sort of seem to be doing their work well, in spite of the complaints and so. So I think there is something to learn there if we just put the politics and the politicians aside. Just the professionalism with which the public officials are doing their job.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, do we have Joy? All right, we'll get a hold of her later on. But let's proceed to our issues now that we speak about that. I mean, there's so much that is happening in the country. I think it's only fair that we start off from yesterday's address by President Uhuru Kenyatta. So much so of adjustments done, so at least we're able to continue dealing with COVID-19. And one thing that we've constantly asked is that what is it that we're doing different, or what is it that Tanzania is doing different and the likes? And President Uhuru Kenyatta was categorical, though he did not mention names. We almost could read what he's trying to tell us. You know what? Don't look at what is happening on the other side. Focus on what is happening here. But technically speaking, Gloria, we have literally been looking at what is happening in other different areas for us to react or for us to do anything.
Yes. And I think you can't say don't.
Hold it right there. I guess we have to fix your audio. Let's go to Simeha.
Yeah, well, it's unavoidable that people will look over the shoulder across the aisle and wonder what it is that we are doing differently from what our neighbors are doing.
Yeah.
But I do think that what I wouldn't want us to ever imagine that we should do is this opaqueness in managing something that is a catastrophe like this COVID-19. I think it's important that every country, if not every country, at least our country, the public officials tell people the truth of what is going on, even if it's sad truth that people are dying, that people are getting sick, and so on, than to say that we've prayed and everyone is okay and we're not going to share any statistics. So those are examples that I wouldn't personally say that let's look at and wish we were like them. I prefer that for this kind of thing, the more open we are, the better. Because it definitely, I think it makes a huge contribution to increasing personal responsibility when you are told the stark naked truth,
right,
that this is grim and it's happening.
A polite way of saying that indeed we've not been getting proper and right information in this particular case, Gloria?
I actually think that to say that we shouldn't focus on what other people are doing it's impossible, because this is a new pandemic. We are all trying to figure out what's working, what's not working, and also where is the benchmark, so we can't just sit in our own East African country and pretend that we're doing the right thing and hope that this is the only thing that can be done. So we of course have to look at what Tanzania is doing, what are the wins, what are the losses. We have to look at our neighbors, because we are in the same we have the same geographical conditions. We kind of have the same economic perspective of things. We are dealing with sort of the benchmark has to be from within, at least East Africa or Africa. So for me, I feel like, again, we don't have a resiliency plan, so we keep second guessing ourselves. For instance, why have we moved the curfew from 11 to 9? Why? What's going to change between 11 to 10? What's going to change between
just 1 hour?
That 1 hour. Telling now the restaurants that this time that we had given for people to feel like they would come and there could be a little bit of business in terms of dinners and things like that. I don't really understand, unless somebody clearly explains to Kenyans, we are doing, not just giving us press conferences of this is what's happening, we are shutting down to this information. For it to be bought in, it has to make sense to the end user. I have to understand, by the way, I'm being told not to go to the restaurants at this time, because between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock, that's when the virus is very active, And then I have to think about it this way. We are saying that we cannot convene in political spaces. We can't. Yes, okay, I understand crowding and all that. But what is the difference between crowding, let's say, 3 million people or even 10,000 people, and crowding 100 people in a town hall? Because they're still going to travel. They're still going to meet. The domino effect of one person being in a crowd, to me, doesn't change. If I'm in this crowd of 100 people in a town hall, and I leave that crowd and I still follow I have my family, I have my social circle, and if I go to the same crowd of 10,000 people, it's the same thing.
Hold it right there. I'll be coming to you to find out how best would you suggest that the president would have approached this, because many people have lauded him anyway, looking at that. But Joy is here with us. Joy, good morning.
Morning, my dear.
Good to have you. Now, we are talking matters COVID-19 in the country, and the president's address yesterday and the measures that were incorporated. The question then would be, we've been observing the trends, and this information or these adjustments, are coming or culminating from what it is that we have observed. Clearly, there was a point where we all felt like maybe we have adhered to the rules to the maximum, but certainly not much has happened in us trying to contain this. Looking at the face, right from the time the first case was recorded, coming to that point where we decided, well, we need to, ease up on the restrictions, because, the numbers have gone down to a point where now we have the numbers surging even more. Would you then suppose that indeed these measures put are instrumental?
Thank you, Linda, for having me on the show. I think I'm with Gloria on this one.
Okay.
I want to see the science. I understand the president. He said yesterday, this is not a time to be making popular interventions, but this is what I have to do. But he's not a scientist. He's not a virologist. He's not a doctor. He's depending on some people to give him information. What sort of information are they giving him? You talked about our neighbors, Tanzania, and how their lack of information seems to have had them in some, lack of a better word, ignorance being bliss in that society. And we have followed the people who are in the West, have decided, you know what, these are the stats, these are the numbers, this is how we are going to respond. Now, if I'm sitting here as a layman, and I'm looking on one side, the people who've got a lot of COVID in their society, but look at them, they're happy, they're having their weddings, they're having their relationships, their economy is thriving because they're trading, and they seem to be having the illness and the sort of time to and I look at these others who have the illness, they are locked down, they have mental health problems, the economy is in shambles. Who would they want to emulate? Because all of us have the virus. There's none of us who's immune. I've come to a place where, and I think I've said it here before, this virus is here to stay. We will not shut ourselves in the houses and come out after 21 days and it's eradicated. As long as people are traveling in and out of the country, are traveling in the region, coronavirus is here to stay for the rest of, as long as we are alive on this earth. So the sooner we know more about it, and the sooner we know how to live with it. So like, for example, I want information on if you have got school-going children, if you've got people with comorbidities, these are some of the protocols you want to adapt in your home. We know the usual ones of wash your hands, social distance, etc., etc. But just throw a little bit more science at this so that we understand how to live with the virus. But like I said, with the president having the information he has and with the people surrounding him and what they're telling him, I don't think he had a choice. But from where I sit, if I had a choice between being sick and being happy and being sick and being depressed, I'd rather be sick and be happy. I'm sorry, Simera, on this one.
Simera, yes, and I'm coming to you. Well, really, some of the deliberations coming from what was given at the 6th Extraordinary Summit from Tekongnas also to speak. And you argue that really we've not been getting good information or tangible information or, reasons that would really back some of the actions that we decide to take today. What does it then mean about the country? Remember, the other day, World Health Organization noted that we have done so well in terms of coming up with innovations to deal with COVID-19 as a country, coming second after South Africa. Would it really be getting to that point when we are dealing with points where we do not have proper information?
Really what I'm saying is that in terms of managing public affairs, the more you inform citizens, the better.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been looked at as, negatively, so to speak, especially when we mark against the rest of the world and the electioneering period in comparison to the rest of the world. Such is not always with such a superpower. But Trump seems to be bringing a different face of what we've known America to be. What does it make you feel?
The decisions they make. It's important for citizens, not just because of what we do today, that we obey this, we obey the curfew and so on, but for us over time to internalize and learn that these are things we will live with, these are things we must learn to manage, these are things we must learn to exist with, but at the same time safely. So that really is what I was hinting at. Provide detailed information to citizens continuously. Don't make it like, okay, you guys wait.
Good to have you, and thank you so much for finding time to speak to us.
But just as part of developing a national culture around this kind of, this is a new thing. We are bound perhaps to get worse things, worse pandemics, health pandemics. Provide information so that it becomes part of the national culture that we inculcate in ourselves to know what we would do next if and when something similar comes.
I would want to use that notion of or analogy of the president. Just how much more information do you need when you know very well that we see our loved ones die every day? When we see this case is being recorded. Good to have you, and thank you so much for finding time to speak. Getting to that point where we can confidently say that at least we know someone who has COVID-19. I mean, even if you're not very close to them, some of them have come out to declare that indeed they've been tested positive in this particular case. So how much more of information would we really want from the government looking at such?
First of all, let's just admit there will always be cynics. Regardless of whatever information we provide, there is always doubters and people who just want to
Americans who look like
be different. And insist that unless I see this and
America I see that.
And that's not even what I'm saying. I am saying that a lot of the information that comes out is detailed, and I'm not saying that you give us all these scientific
developments or in terms of changes that he's made for America.
But give people information about the behavior of this disease, the way it changes, and so on and so forth.
No, I'm saying, is there anything to take home in terms of a first term or the first term of President Donald Trump?
Being sufficiently informed. Begin to change their behavior for the better, not for the immediate only, not for the immediate only, but to change their behavior for the better, for the long haul. I think that is extremely useful.
And maybe the other information that we personally, the other information I would like the government to give me is when you're telling me this many people have recovered, I want to know where did they recover? I mean, you can also give that information. You can give me because you've known that they've recovered. I want to know, is it okay? How do I get, if I have COVID-19, tell me, by the way, give me success stories of, so and so has recovered, blah blah blah. Because then I am able to say that person got COVID, that person called on government. Government actually came, got them out through the ambulance or whatever. Because people have also lost faith in the interventions that government is trying to do.
We really are still dealing with stigma, or so to speak.
We're dealing with stigma
months down the line, genuinely.
And that's because as much as we're getting this many deaths, this many recoveries, we are not being told the true stories. Also, we're not being told recoveries from where. Are they home recoveries? If they're home recoveries, sensitize me that only at this point is when I should go to hospital. I want to hear those stories. Then I also want to understand, when you say at least we are getting to a place where the curve is flattening or the curve is peaking or whatever, explain to me, how, why is the curve? Because if you're getting information that the curve is peaking, you're getting information from certain regions. If you're getting information from Nairobi that it's peaking, you're also getting from certain hospitals. Those people who are going to hospital, when you go to hospital, you ask, have you traveled? Do you have this? Do you have that? So that's information that they can easily give so that they can justify some of the things that they are trying to put in place, especially now that they're changing with the timings for the curfew and things like that. For instance, just in Nairobi, you can say, okay, our deputy president has been having gatherings, and it has peaked. We've noticed that it has peaked in Mount Kenya or where because there has been a high activity of this, and because of that, then we are going to stop this kind of gatherings.
And
that's information they can get.
Okay, hold it right there. Joy, do you suppose the government has enough capability? And this I am asking, assuming that indeed every government should be able to give their citizens all this information. I mean, if they have not done so up until today, if up until today we still decry of the fact that we're not getting clear information from the government, instead we're getting more of instilling of fear. I mean, does it then speak of a government that is deprived, a government that is not capable, or just
and these are people who come from other countries and make us
capable. What we did, we copied bad manners from the WHO.
Like we used to.
Because they are the ones
and these are people who come from other
they
countries and make us a better place.
So far, 6 million have gotten it, 10 million have recovered, 5 million have died. And running these random numbers, what it does, like you've correctly said, it just gives us a lot of fear. But on the other hand, I agree 100% with what Simeha and Gloria have said. If you give us relevant information, then all of us know how to change our behavior to adapt to that. And I think I've used this example before with you, Linda, where a disease like TB spreading almost exactly the same way as COVID is spread, that I find to be almost 20 times more lethal than COVID. Because when was it? Was it 2018? 33,000 Kenyans died of TB. So it's a lot more lethal than COVID is. But Kenyans have got enough information to know ukisikia joto kwa mwili, kohozi, upungufu wa nguvu, losing weight quickly, pengine ni TB. Na TB inatiba. This is where you go, this is what you do. It's gotten to a place where even if you tell someone I have TB, they'll just tell you pole, but they'll not start shunning you. But here we have people who've recovered from COVID after 2-3 months. A friend of mine was posting on Facebook and saying the children in the estate are telling the others not to play with her children because mama walikuwa na corona.
In terms of first term or the first term of President Donald Trump.
We don't have the equipment to the information to fight the disease, but we have the information
Donald
to
Trump
fear it.
loves America
and that becomes useless
and Americans who look like
him.
him.
So we have to come to a place where the Ministry of Health has to make deliberate steps to change the information. And that's a challenge Gloria is throwing, that you guys have the capability. These stats, you're drawing them from somewhere. Give us relevant information. The guys who recovered from home, what did they do? Did they take lemon juice and honey? Did they take vitamin D and zinc? And did they take vitamin E supplements? Give us information that tells you, okay, if you're at home, this is what you can do to keep yourself healthy. If you find you have this, try and do 1, 2, 3.
We can almost be sure, yes, we can almost be sure that they've been using lemon, because the level at which the price of lemon has shot up, you can be rest assured.
Eating lemon like an apple.
It has gotten to that point. All right, well, just picking up from what Joy says, And she cites the likes of TB, you know, the other conditions that we've been having, HIV and AIDS and everything. Simeha, you will agree with me that it has taken so much time for us to get to that point where people have had proper knowledge on TB, proper knowledge of HIV and AIDS, years probably. Then why is it that we would want to rush this scenario of COVID-19?
Well, we should have been picking up experience from, you know, from the other pandemics or just illnesses like the ones you're mentioning.
Yeah.
We should have been picking up experience that then we use, plus also the experience of the, people having faith and confidence in a government. The government should already know that there's a way you do certain things that completely crushes people's trust in you. And once you crush that trust, it becomes very difficult to win it back.
Right.
So we wouldn't say that this is, well, it's a new pandemic, but in terms of a disease that affects many people that is lethal, it's not new. We've had others, as you've mentioned.
Right.
So I would just argue that, you know, it's a government that should or ought to have been picking up experience from dealing with other diseases, not of its own self, but also outside of this country.
So deciding that our students or the students who are in school that they should stay in school still is a good way of saying that, well, out of the experiences, then we argue that maybe the pandemic is here to stay. There's really nothing much that we can do, even if we are to release them to go back home. And, you know, making that decision would be a good way to learn from this experience.
When it comes to education, I have a child in school just now in grade 8. That one I honestly pray. When I listen to this man called Magoha, of all the government people who are telling us things about corona, he's the one who frightens me the most. He frightens me honestly. So you ask me questions about education and how we should manage, I don't know really what to answer. It's frightening. Honestly, you hold your heart and just say, we just hope these children can be safe. We have trust. We know that teachers, head teachers and so on, there's many of them who do a good job. But the guy at the top of the education ministry is frightening. Just listening, looking at what he's been telling us, how he's been telling us over the last several months since the beginning of this thing. It's frightening to have that kind of person in charge of a ministry that is responsible for thousands of children. It's frightening.
All right, well, pretty much unfortunate, but I agree with you that indeed it's frightening, especially for parents who have their students in school. That is for sure. Gloria, I do not want us to go one by one in picking up this particular adjustments that were made by the president, 14-point adjustments. I think we are privy to all this information. And you argue that maybe, well, the approach was probably not the best. Many have also argued that, you know what, it's the best that the president could have done. Genuinely, what other options would you have given as opposed to these ones?
No, actually, you're right. It's the best that the president could have done. Because this is what you know, they say that our punishment for going to the ballot and picking the wrong leaders, this is it. Yeah, this is, we are dealing with our consequences. It's the best that he could have done, because when you look at the people that are advising him, you know, that is the best they could come up with. Yeah. And if you ask me, it kind of felt like he just needed to do something to look like he's bothered. Yeah. So if I just need to do something and it doesn't necessarily come from a place of do something impactful, then it's like, okay, let's move the hours here and there, let's do this, you know, let's give a press conference, let's go out there. Let's make some few adjustments. I mean, before it was really wrong not to wear a mask. Now you'll be fined 20,000. Before it was the police who are, now you know it's the police and who are going to. Really, when you look at what he announced yesterday, actually, guys were saying Maliza Haraka, so we can go back to the US and, you know, follow what's happening. Yeah, because that's how irrelevant that press conference was. It was very relevant. There's no scientific evidence behind it, at least that is given to us. There's no logical explanation of, for instance, that moving that curfew. There's no logical explanation there. And then I feel also it's not even about the explanations. It's about where are we trying to go? You know, it's like we are at the bus stop and we have been at the bus stop and we've not been leaving. And every time there's a press conference, we think, okay, now the bus is about to come, but you know, no, we are still here. Our education, as you know, is still stuck with Magoha trying to figure out whether he, you know, whatever he's doing with that ministry. We really, if you look at where we started from in March to where we are now, the only thing I can say is positive, because I've experienced this, is that some of our private hospitals have adjusted with dealing with private, not government, have adjusted. For instance, if you go to Nairobi Hospital, you'll see They have a special wing. They have adjusted their ways on, if you come into casualty, you don't just go directly somewhere to be seen by a doctor.
Yeah.
They have tents. So if I look at where we started in March and where we are with government, we are in the same spot. We are doing numbers from the Ministry of Health, and those numbers mean absolutely nothing. We had a chance to have something impactful because we fundraised a lot of COVID money, and you saw what happened. That all went to waste.
Right.
After the scandal, and nothing happened to the guys who are actually implicated in it. That was shut down. So it's like we've been mark timing. And the worst thing about this is how I feel. The worst thing about it is that now there is a tool that state machinery, that deep state, that dynasty, that whoever feels they have control can use for their personal and political mileage. Yeah. So it's like now the town halls have been put in. It's, at the beginning we said, why are you guys telling the Deputy President William Ruto to stop going on campaigns? And we can see Raila Odinga and all the other guys doing the same thing, but him is not getting. So now because they want to institutionalize discrimination on a political level, they create this issue of town halls. Because of course, Deputy President William Ruto is not going to hold a town hall. That guy, when he shows up even outside this gate, thousands.
But if they ruled out this 101%, what would have been the fate of the BBI? Simeha wants to say,
the other thing. Yeah.
I'm a bit surprised that you actually argue that the risks are not heightened by larger crowds. I actually believe that the risks are heightened when you have a larger crowd than when you have a
third that is contained.
Yes, and also that you can achieve the other things like social distancing. It's slightly easier even to do things like tracing, because then you can take names in town halls and so on and so forth. And even speaking politically,
you can social distance in the town hall. Let's, for instance, Naivasha.
They say it's a third capacity of this particular.
For me, I wanted to question. You can actually have social distances I want to see how they're social distancing in that town hall, and then I want to see how a public rally.
Let me. I think be patient, and you will see that it is possible in a town hall. And they talked about seating capacity.
Yes,
seating capacity, meaning that you want to have a political meeting. It will not be where people stand, cheer, crowd, push, pull, and so on. They have to sit. And it's possible to do that and social distance or physical distance than it is to do in a public rally out here. And guess what? It is also possible for the Deputy President to hold town halls. He's been holding indoor meetings at his residence in Karen. I don't think they've stopped him. He can continue that. Just that he should do a third of the capacity of, and he has a huge place for holding meetings. I don't think there's any discrimination.
Well,
he can do it.
In this case anyway, it did not shoot him down, because after all he had declared that he's not going to hold the session.
No, but the town hall is really just about the business continuity of the Building Bridges Initiative, scandal, or whatever you want to call it.
Which is more or less like a reality. And I'd want to look at it this way. And Joy, as we get to wind up on these particular ones, President Uhuru Kenyatta started by acknowledging that it is almost hard for the government to police you, on something that is more or less like an individual responsibility. And true to it, again, he finished by saying that indeed the Interior Ministry is going to be awake alongside other stakeholders towards ensuring that Kenyans are able to abide by the general measures that are set. Just how realistic is this? And why I would want to pick it up from Gloria's argument is that even in churches, there were guidelines that were issued, but true to it, go to churches today, such is not being observed. Just how possible is the government able to proceed and ensure that they will police people to a point whereby they will adhere to this?
Linda, which churches do you go to that don't adhere? Because
honestly speaking,
have spaced out the chairs.
Well,
people don't sit in lumps as they used to. Like the church I go to, we spread out our services. We have services from 7 in the morning to 6:30 in the evening. But maybe there are those that don't adhere. So let me not be a judge of people that I have no idea about. But I hear what you're saying. It's giving the police work that is not theirs to go and tell people, you know what, you need to put on your masks. Some of those things used to be the work of city council askaris. Those days when we used to have city council. Maybe Gloria may not remember, but Simeha must remember. There was a troop that used to be called. Do you remember Maliza Twende? These were city council askaris that used to police people used to urinate on a public urination against public urination. So if they found you urinating, that's why their nickname was Maliza Twende. So it's almost like a civic duty. It's a civic county council function.
Yeah.
It's not a function of the Ministry of Interior to find out, are people wearing masks or are they not? But we are working with what we have. And we've gotten to a place where I think Kenyans are more afraid of the police than they are for their own safety and their own health. And Kenyans had gotten to a place where they had decided, you know what, if you politicians are not getting COVID, neither are we. So I guess that's why the president felt he needed to come down hard on Kenyans with telling the Ministry of Interior, you do any and all that you can to ensure that this happens. But there's a point that Simeka made earlier that I think is actually the bottom line. Personal responsibility is what we should be cultivating. A culture change is what we should be cultivating, where compliance is not by force, but it is because people have understood the benefit of doing it. So there are people that I know, you will not say hello to them if you're not wearing a mask. They'll not even come anywhere near you. They have decided that they're going to adhere, and when I'm in their space, I know this is not a person we will shake hands, we will namaste, and we will stay 5 kilometers away, because that's how they've chosen to engage.
5 kilometers is a little bit too long. Let me throw that one.
Not 5 kilometers,
of course, I know it's not literally.
And what that has done is, when I'm around certain people now, I know for them, it's become part of their normal existence. That's what we need to be aspiring to, where this becomes part of our culture. So we look at the Japanese, for example. They started masking long before the rest of us. Some of the Chinese as well, they started masking long before some of us. So I would rather we aim for the culture change, help people understand how this is saving their lives. Because right now, for somebody to say Corona is not real, they are not being honest. Because with the level of deaths, all of us have heard of somebody or have been affected by a Corona illness or death in our circles.
Right.
But what people have reached is that place where, are we taking sufficient personal responsibility? But part of that is normalizing living with Corona. So for example, allowing people to go out to pubs and to social places, let them suffer the consequences. Because when one of your crew in your drinking crew gets ill, the rest of you will not need persuasion to take this thing seriously. So some of these things, they say experience is the best teacher. He's the most expensive teacher, but he's still the best teacher. Some of us, you just have to learn by experience.
You're such a tight parent, yeah.
Sustainability of that the responsibility on the citizen is actually more realistic, because when you look at disease like HIV and AIDS, we are not sending the Ministry of Interior to arrest those people not using condoms and spreading the virus. I look at it the same way. So why are you, if we're going to do that about every other disease that is, communicable, that is spread by either contact or what, we might as well create a new police force just for disease control,
All right, well, after all, no mask, no services. So let's wind it up at that. I mean, there's barely nothing much we can do in regards to this. Let's talk BBI. And now that we have argued, or Gloria argues, so to speak, because I'm not allowed to weigh in my sentiments in this case, that you know what, well, they're coming up with this restriction of having town hall meetings, or so to speak, is clearly about the interest of the BBI. I mean, what do you make of that, Simeka?
Whether this was going to happen or not, I think the project of BBI was still going to go ahead, of course, with due regard, as it has happened, with due regard for public safety, public health regulations, and so on and so forth. So I do not think that one requires to be that desperate to push through this kind of project. I think one thing that I need to make clear is that people sometimes argue from a point of assumption that this should be an altruistic project. Land there, if we just put the politics and the politicians aside, every political project in any country is driven by interests are doing their job. It's up to the people of that country,
do we have
that
Joy?
nation, to weigh in to ensure that none of the interests that are at play outweigh the overall.
So what is happening in the country, I think it's only fair that we start off from yesterday's address by President Uhuru Kenyatta. So much so of adjustments done, so at least we're able to continue dealing with COVID-19. And one thing that we constantly ask is that what is it that we're doing different, or what is it that Tanzania is doing different and the likes? And President Uhuru Kenyatta was
what can
though he did not.
so that, well, either they stop this
almost
project,
could read what he's trying to tell us. You know what? Don't look at what is happening on the other side. Focus on what is happening here. But technically speaking, Gloria, we have literally been looking at what is happening in other different areas for us to react or for us to do anything.
That the interests at play,
hold it right there. I guess we have to fix your audio. Let's go to
overrides the general public interest. Well, it's unavoidable that it could be maybe people read mischief in this thing of the town halls, but I do not think that we are doing different. There's any discrimination. But I do think that who can do town halls and who cannot do. And even before that, information has already gone out. Before this, is that this part of the BBI plan is to hold town halls so that people can be, the report can be disseminated. If not every country, you know, the public officials tell people the truth of what is going on, even if it's sad truth that people are dying.
So which is why, if you ask
sick,
me, when they were putting the restrictions, they absolutely must have talked about are town halls legal or not. You understand? So for me, however way you look at it, it's not about reading mischief. Sometimes also Kenyans have logic. We are actually, we have common sense. So this whole thing of saying stop trying to be negative, stop it. If you had already decided BBI is going through the town hall, and then a few days later you come and tell us, and the only no public whatever town halls only are the ones that are legal. Of course, we can see state machinery working.
Okay.
Yeah.
We go to Joy. Joy, yes. I'll tell you for free that really there are some of these proposals that are incorporated in the BBI that Gloria really does not subscribe to. Last time I checked, is that you said there is so much so in the BBI that we can tap into that will be good enough for the people. Do you still maintain the same position after reading it?
COVID-19. I think it's important that every
this country, I'm a bit confused,
if not every country, at least our country,
I
the public officials tell people the truth
in contributing to its formation and the creation.
Right.
And so that's why I'm a little bit biased. But whenever I speak with people about the BBI report, I tell them, look at it
what is going on, even if it's
first and foremost, the BBI process was born out of a political process, political expedience. So it's their handshake, it's two gentlemen, they felt they needed to work together so that they can move the country forward, or whether they can politically survive, as whatever the case may be. But where it started out in politics. And so when you look at the report, there are parts of it that deal with the politics. And those parts are, it's
people are dying, that people, what is going on, even if
they were negotiated by the political players to their political end. And that's when you're told the constitutional question is closed and is not up for discussion. The only people it was up for discussion are the politicians who are also political players. Then for Kenyans, I tell them, you know what, don't let that part of it give you a headache, because it doesn't help your life. But the BBI implementation report now is not at the stage where it's just the constitutional question, that the policy and administrative issues.
That people are dying, that people are getting sick, and so on.
That means
than
if
to
you
say
read
that
through the report, there's a section, I think it's above page 58, where it talks about now the duty bearers, who's going to do what, who's going to implement what. If I were Kenyan, that's what I would go and see. The sector that I'm working, what are the proposals, which ministry is responsible for? Can I start doing memoranda to tell them, you know what, as they bring the policy to implement this,
so those are examples that I wouldn't personally say that let's look at and wish we were like them.
That's a level of engagement that Kenyans can have. Then there's the part of the report that is legislative. Now, by the Constitution of Kenya, we as citizens have a right to participate in legislation making. And if we are not given that opportunity, we can go to court and stop any discussion on legislation until public participation has happened. So look at the bills, what has been proposed. Start coming up with memoranda on what is involved
for this kind of thing, the more open we are, the better.
Start lobbying members of parliament regarding
I think it makes a huge contribution to increasing personal responsibility. When you are told
that is going to go through regardless.
That this
and on that level, even if you say, oh no, I don't want to
saying that indeed we've not been.
I think that one, where it has been put, mwananchi wa kawaida, that one we can just wait for it at referendum, ipitishe matuangushe. But on these other sections that are already taking place, that are already being implemented, that is where Kenyans can engage. And that's why I encourage Kenyans, you know what, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Take the report, dissect it, break it down, even if you just find that one thing that's of real interest to you. So for example, I know Gloria is a proponent of youth affairs. When you talk about the Youth Commission and all those other things that the youth have been given, now you sit down with your guys and see, is there anything that you can do to improve? Because that is going to go mostly to policy and is going to go mostly to administrative before even
Getting
because
more
it's not really a
openly out, the
constitutional
better.
question.
You know, because
That is where Kenyans can have input, and that's why I asked guys, you know what, because the process is going to go on regardless, you'd rather be in partaking than watching the train go by.
All right, I will allow Gloria the right to respond, but not before I get to hear what Simeha thinks about the BBI. It's long since I had him. I've never had a chance to know your stand after we officially read the document.
Yeah, but I also, just like Joy, you know, was involved in, as part of the team of experts, a member of the team of experts in negotiating and developing what eventually ended up in this report. So it's important that your viewers know that I declare that interest. But secondly, I am of the same view that it's important to understand the context where this process came from. In the management of public affairs, in management of power in society, all manner of things happen. A lot of them happen behind doors, and we never know. We just see things happening. We just see a cabinet has changed, so-and-so has brought in this one. But here is something where the ones who agreed, the wielders of power, one of immense political power, another of the instruments of cohesion of the state, come together and then say, okay, we will involve the public. I think it's important because they could have chosen, even if it was wrong, because they've done a lot of wrong things anyhow, without your participation.
Right.
They said, okay, let's involve the public. So I think it's important for people to look at it that way, that is there not an opportunity? As I said earlier, if it was totally evil, in my opinion,
Right.
I wouldn't get involved, and I would be part of a mobilization to make some attempt to stop it. But if I see that there are problems, but there are opportunities as well in it, is to encourage people, as Joy is saying, we have the constitutional questions which majorly answer to the political settlement. They take care of the political settlement.
Right.
Those ones, I mean, if you remember the security laws in Parliament, how the Jubilee Brigade passed those laws. Remember those incidents of pouring of water on each other and so, like, if they decide we want this,
They should be.
it happens.
It sails through.
I'm not saying it's necessarily right, Linda.
Yes.
But I'm saying, okay, then, besides that, isn't there anything else? And there's lots of stuff in policy, and these are not yet legal instruments. So there is a chance for when they begin to be developed into legal instruments for people to participate.
Right.
And thirdly and finally, also how you respond. You know, political grandstanding gets responded to through political grandstanding. No politician anywhere will stand, you standing and, you know, pointing fingers at them and shouting at them and threatening that if you don't do this, you actually dare them, they will say, okay, let's see. But in the meantime,
this could have informed that decision that maybe there are no amendments.
but that's what I'm literally saying that.
Okay.
Look, MPs have negotiated. They went to Naivasha and negotiated something, for example, that is not part of this report.
Okay.
And eventually, I think it will end in. And I know there are many other constituencies that have a better approach and will negotiate. And likely the final bill will end up accommodating the pastoralists, like people with disability, like women, the women movement. I know they are negotiating very hard, very diplomatically.
Well, we haven't had stands coming from this and developments. I mean, even as of yesterday, we had women from Inua Mama, that is Tanga Tanga movement, arguing that, you know what, this is washing down the gains that we have made so far. And being part and parcel of the making of this particular document, we say that at least this allows you the latitude to understand the document even more. But when we take hard stance on this, then what does it mean for the people who are trying to, you know, read the document, trying to, you know, just understand what is incorporated in it, yet there's very minimal, probably civic education, or maybe not to the maximum as many of them would have expected, the likes of Gloria.
What I'm saying is, if you limit your understanding of BBI to Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, and you think that your way of weighing in on BBI is to stand on a public podium and tell them, if you don't do this, we will not do this. Then you've lost it before you even begin. But if you understand BBI as a process, yes, the public face of BBI, Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, and others, but it's a process that involves so many people. That a process that was led by, in terms of the technical part, by a steering committee and a team of experts. And you understand that this is a process. If I see opportunities, I can negotiate. I can insist that what stands for me should be included in that. Then, for God's sake, you can do away with that political grandstanding. The time for it will come, because it's part of our politics anyhow. Time for political grandstanding will come. You can actually lobby and ensure that what is dear to you goes into this process, informs it, without having to do political grandstanding, which you know very well, in the nature of political games, will be met with equal force of political grandstanding. And then, you don't gain anything. So I'm just saying it's the approach. In fact, I'm in absolute agreement that this report has defects, that this report could have been better. But I will not agree that for that reason that you say that let's throw it away because it has this defect, because it has the other defect. I think for that reason, let us see what can be improved as it moves to the next stage of informing people, sensitizing people, and so on, but also developing the legal instruments. By the time we are developing the legal instruments or finalizing on them, because there's like some draft here, your issues can be incorporated. But if you want political grandstanding, I'm a player in politics at a different level. I know that you get that.
All right.
Yeah.
Gloria.
I have so much to say, but I'm going to summarize my thoughts. I want to start by saying I was not in a technical committee. I have not interacted with the BBI in terms of giving them my expertise or my skills. I've given my views through other forums, but by saying I was not part of a team or part of a whatever, I'm also saying I did not receive a fee to participate in that whole process.
Trying to figure out what's
so
working,
that means
what's not working.
my
And
views
also,
are
where
very,
is the benchmark?
they're not biased to anything. I was not paid for nothing.
Second guessing ourselves.
So
For
I'm just
instance, why have we moved
responding to what was
11 to
presented
9?
to us.
Why?
I'm actually
What's going to
I'm
change
the common
between
Kenyan.
11 to 10? What's going to
So
change
I want to start by
between
there.
that 1
Now
hour?
I have
Joy
having
saying
telling
that,
now the restaurants that when you talk
time
when we
had given
look at
people to
BBI
feel
and
like
look
they
at the
would
constitutional
constitutional
amendments and the things that touch on the political elements or things like that, I don't really understand unless because BBI started as a process between two people, two politicians who came together, who decided they want to do something and they went behind closed doors and they had their deals, then they came back to the public and the end users. Us common Kenyans who are trying to, I'm being told, we were trying to just live life and survive. They pushed us to now having to go through this 204 pages of a decision that they did behind the scenes. You understand? So understanding that, my colleague is saying we have to understand the context. He needs to also understand that this is where we are coming from.
Right.
We were not part of a handshake. We were not part of the closed doors. We did not want this thing, but now we are in a situation where, and by the way, when I say we, it's Kenyans. We are the authority. We are the supreme power.
Right.
We are the sovereignty of anything that is touching on that constitution. And yet you can see how we are being carried as a by the way. By the way, the two of us we've shaken our hands and we've said this and this, Kujeni Msome, these 204 pages. In itself, when you start from there, ask yourself, what was the intent of this whole initiative? Now, on one side, we are told, there are things we can't change. You can't come and chest stamp and say you want this and you want that. You have to negotiate with diplomacy. You have to do this. You have to do that. You have to understand this. We are being given tunapewa vikwazo. And yet, this is like beating somebody and tell them, don't cry like that. Cry like this. You understand? So now you have an authority that is imposing things on you that you never wanted. You don't want to be a part of it,
and you have no choice.
And you have no choice now. I hear people saying when you take BBI, read it on this, administrative processes, constitution. You read it like this. Do it like first. You've assumed all 50 million Kenyans can read English. You understand? So you've also assumed we have access to this. I got this book when I went to Bomas. Before that, I tried to print out the soft copy and I found out it would cost me 8,000 Kenya shillings to print it. Look at that assumption now that these people are telling Kenyans, when you read it, when I read it, where will I get it? Start from there. Then, now you forced me into participating into a process that was an initiative of two men, two senior citizens. Now you're me, Gloria, a youth, a woman. You're bringing into now we've decided Sisi Kama, the men with power, we are doing this. Come here now, Gloria, sit down. Read these 204 pages. And by the way, don't respond with chest thumping. Ukitaka kuwekewa hapo ukuje kama umenyenyekea. You understand? So for me, understand that is how Kenyans are thinking. And then the things that, yes, okay, now when you go into the content of BBI, because as much as I was not part of the technical scheme, blah, 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 now I was forced to read it because I'm in the civic space. Right. So I read it. When I look at the proposals that we are being told, you know, after all, Gloria, you're youth and you're a woman, we are taking care of you like this. We have youth commission, you have this.
Enjoy that and stay.
When you go down to the details, how are we going to implement it? What are the timelines of implementation of the youth commission? There are no timelines of that implementation. It says, you know, maybe in time, maybe, which means we can pass it as law, but it doesn't have any repercussions if we don't implement it. Okay. So already it's like telling your child, end over in viatu, alafu kuje we go. And by the time ameva viatu, you are in your car, you're going to figure out, you know. Those are the things that I found in the other things that you're saying, they're just, so we can't just sit in our own East African country and pretend that we're doing the right thing and hope that this is the only thing that can be done. There's nothing stopping. So for me, bottom line, I am not against, you know, our neighbors, because we are in the same geographical. I want you guys to leave me at the same geographical conditions. Kenyans, we kind of have the same economic, in every matter that perspective of things. We are dealing with sort of, you know, the benchmark to the table has to be from when they say expansion of the executive, again I'm saying, so those 5 new positions that they're creating, I feel like prime ministers again, we don't have a resiliency plan. There is no cap, so we keep second guessing ourselves. For instance, why have we moved the cap from 11 to 9? Youth and why? We're not talking about the youth there, so why should I start participating in whether I agree or not? When you go into, we are going to have one senator woman, one senator, they're not talking about age. They're not, the youth is not in any place of all of these amendments. Actually, we are not, it doesn't affect us. Right. So stop dragging us into your own Mulienda Mkashik hands. Stop dragging us into your thing. And I'm telling the youth, don't participate in a contest that is not yours. So at the end of the day, if you ask me how I feel about this, how I feel is it started at the boardroom. I feel like again, we don't have a referendum because this is not our contest. Second guessing ourselves. For instance, why have we no referendum? No referendum. However way you want to conclude from BBI. In fact, today there's a press conference and we're told we concluded after all. We have the numbers. We have the like finish it. Finish it in the boardroom where
we have a maximum of around 4 minutes there. So I'll allow you one and a half to respond to Gloria. I mean, I bet there are numerous questions that I would have asked there that need answers. Joy. Let's be brief.
I hear what Gloria is saying, and I appreciate where she's coming from. And I think many Kenyans are in that space where they're wondering, if you guys are going to do this regardless, why are you involving us? But that's what Simeka was saying earlier. They could have done this without listening to Kenyans at all, but they have given Kenyans an opportunity. So make your voice heard. And I still remind Kenyans, whether or not it's something that we wanted right now, if indeed a referendum does come, you still have a chance to make your voice heard. But that said, one of the things that we must agree is that there's plenty in the report that does not need the constitution to be changed for it to be changed. For example, if you're talking about our national values and national ethos, rewriting our history, these are things actually that go to the software of being Kenyan. Those are discussions that we need to have regardless, because we are where we are with disputed elections, with very antagonistic politics, because Kenyans just have a general culture of mistrust. So these are conversations that we need to have.
I feel like,
has also
again, we don't have a
that the document is too big for people to read. I've heard that from other quarters. It's 204 pages, Joy. How do you want me to read all this? I've been urging Kenyans, just form a book club. Do 10 people. Get 20 pages each. Read it. Sit around your table and just dissect it according to what did you understand from the 20 pages. Because we can do this together. It is one thing to disparage the politics of it, because I agree, when it started, it was not looking like a very people-centered process. But now that people have been invited to the table, if I've learned anything in politics, you get what you negotiate for. If you do not get your voice heard, then later you lose the right to say, by the way, you know what, this
has to be from within, at least it's Africa or Africa.
So I would ask Kenyans to find a way to get involved.
I feel like,
and if you
again,
get a
we don't have a resiliency plan,
there's absolutely nothing that you can get involved with, that's also fine. It is your right to decide, you know what, on this one, I'm going to sit it out, because eventually, at the end of the day, as Gloria has correctly said, it's going to end somehow, some way.
Well,
so if you trust the process, wait for that somehow,
well, I would want us to be specific on this. It is unfortunate and heartbreaking to hear Ayut say that, you know what, whichever direction it takes, let it take. That is not the Kenya we want. We want a Kenya where we're going to be involved actively in making the changes in the country. If it gets to that point, Simeha, what does it make you feel?
Well, Gloria is a young person and a young woman at that, and she's telling young people, don't get involved. But at the same time, she's confessing that she was at Bomas, and I'm happy about that.
For instance,
at the same time, she's showing us
I was holding grief for the young people at Bomas.
She's telling other young people, stay away. I will decide if and when to engage for you and how to engage. That is when you have a platform like, like a national television like this, you do not do that. Let each and every young, old, whatever person make a decision for themselves. And it's best that you let them come at the table, check what is there. If they like it, fine. If they don't like it, let them make an attempt to change.
1 hour.
If they can't, let them overturn
telling now the restaurants that this
there are many options.
Time that
rather than
given
saying you stay away,
like they would
but
come
you
and
leave it to me,
there could be a
who's here in
little bit of
Nairobi,
business in
I
terms
will
of
do it
dinner.
for you.
I think
unless
one minute left.
Yes. No, I need to finish because you have a lot of time to speak. So I'm very glad, by the way, that even as even as Gloria says this, she's engaging, and I'm very happy, and that's what we mean. Engaging does not mean that you must agree with. Engaging actually involves what she is doing. And finally, even those who are proposing, even those of us who have chosen is the one
because
between
to engage 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock,
they're not
that's when the virus is like information for it to be bought in. It has to make sense to the end user. I have to understand. By the way, I'm being told that there could be a little bit of business in terms of dinners and things like that. I don't really understand unless somebody clearly. No. This is what has been happening. By the way, this is a clear indication of what's been happening when we take our views to the task force. They don't hear us, So he didn't hear me. I said, do not engage in a contest that is not yours. The contest, just giving us don't take us to a referendum. I'm here to engage in other points, but I'm not going to participate in a contest.
Hold it right there. A conversation for another day. Yes, as we always say, the BBI conversation is here with us until that particular point where we'll say, you know what, over and done with it. What next forward for the nation? Gloria Roba, Youth Policy Analyst, thank you so much for the great insights. Joy Mdivo, Executive Director, EACJL. It was good having you via Skype. And lastly, Joseph Simeha, Governance Expert, Asante Sana. It was indeed a very instrumental debate this morning. You can always grab the same on our social media platforms. Then up next, we're coming with a different conversation altogether after this break. Thank you.